Hi everybody, this is Adam from Games and More,
This is Ryan from Comics Havoc.
and this is Games
Comics.
and Coffee. We haven't done this for a while, and that's still cheesy.
I know. But yet the coffee always gets better. I wonder how that is. Try the Irish Crumlin. Very good.
Can I really call it Games, Comics, and Coffee? This is a shake.
But it's a coffee version of a shake.
Okay,
That works. Just like coffee ice cream existed before it was popular back in the 80s.
Mm.
And we apologize if we look a little wet. It is raining outside.
For the umpteenth time this summer.
That's why we have a lot of background noise. Everybody decided to get out of the rain. Usually it's quiet this time of day.
It's weird. Last summer, we couldn't get a drop of rain to save our lives. I think every rain dance somebody did affected this summer.
I think so, because this is a complete opposite. Actually, it's going to be a good...
Oh, we're in a library, by the way. No, we're in a
Yeah.
coffee shop. We're in a coffee.
with lots of graphic novels behind us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we would have been in a nice quiet room. Unfortunately, got overbooked, but that's a little sub. Oh well. Anyhow, let's get to the topic at hand today. Adam, kick us off.
Okay, we have quite a few things to talk about, actually. Probably have to go a little bit into next time we do this. But one thing that has really taken the internet recently was there was a kid. Well, I say kid, he's like 19.
Yeah, I was like, still technically a teen.
Yeah, there was a, we'll say young man. How about that?
That works better.
Okay, he was actually jailed for a Facebook comment that he made. He was playing League of Legends. What's this kid's name? Carter. I know it's his last name. Justin Carter. He was playing League of Legends, and you know, I'm sure you've done multiplayer games and everything.
Yes, don't play as much as I can. I mean,
Trash
free time.
talk. Trash talk's there.
Yes, it is.
Well, he took it to a whole different level. A level he really shouldn't have, where I won't say exactly what he said because there's some stipulation that's stopping us right now.
Yes.
So I won't say exactly what he said, but essentially he put on Facebook that he was going to harm children in a school and then basically mutilate them.
Right.
But then he put LOL JK. Now, he was actually, another player saw that he put this, went onto his Facebook profile, learned that he lived close to a school, and then called the police in his area. He was then arrested. They did their investigation, and you would think that, okay, investigation done. If they didn't find anything, which they didn't, they found no history of violence, no history of mental illness. They found no weapons.
It was a comment that just should not have been said.
Yeah, you would think, okay, well, slap on the wrist, maybe 1,000 hours of community service at the most.
And an apology.
And an apology. Public apology. But he's been in jail since then. This happened in February. That's 5-6 months now.
Yeah, it's been a little over 5.
And he's actually facing 8 years in prison for it. Now, I know you're a parent. And you're a parent of a young kid who is about the age of the people he was saying he'd go do that to. Do you think he should still be in jail for this? Do you think?
Well,
how do you feel as a parent?
And this is a weird thing too, because I know there are people out there joking. Some people go too far. I mean, let's face it. I deal with kids all the time, all age ranges, which say things, and I'm just like, that's really not appropriate to say. It's not warranted. It's trying to teach them why it's not appropriate, and everything. And I can't get hugely, but you know, if my son was doing that, if he was of age, I would say this too. If I had one of my nieces or nephews said it too, is it's not appropriate. You should not be doing it, and if not, at least in a way where it's going to come get you. It's one thing when you're in a circle, you're joking around with a couple of guys over, you know, playing games and you know, eating BLT sandwiches. It's in the house, it's nothing, and they're just joking around. It's another thing when you're putting out there. That's one thing we talk about hugely, and I know I talk very much because of a teacher about social networks. What you put out there, people see. I mean, this is being seen right here. That's why we're being careful. I mean,
I get in trouble with family sometimes.
Exactly.
Stuff I put
Exactly. I mean, we have friends, we have family, we have jobs, we have families. And we don't want to say something even if we're joking. I mean, there's a great example of a teacher about a couple years ago was out at a, graduation party. He got a picture of him drinking a beer, put it on Facebook, lost his job.
Now he's over 21, and he wasn't saying, "Hey, kids, do this."
Exactly. And the other thing was, this was provided to the parents and grown-ups for the party, so it wasn't like it wasn't supervised, and there wasn't any underage drinking, but he did lose a job. And I'll go thing. I had a classmate who talked about this. And he's writing this for his dissertation. Is where does the amount of discipline go outside the work? Because there's one thing when you do things that can harm you or other people. There's another thing when you're doing just something out of nowhere and somebody puts it. I think that the weird thing is we live in a society now where we are under a microscope. Doesn't matter if it's big brother, little brother, whatnot. And we have to watch what we say. And I think right now we need to be more careful what we say. I mean, we can have fun. And I think a good friend of mine told me too, is like, hey, I put this out, just say it. Have a problem with it, talk to me. But
Mhm.
he's not gonna say it at the same time that it's gonna get his daughters in trouble, his wife in trouble, or cost him his job.
But really, if he'd have put this pre-Sandy Hook, would this have been a
That
problem?
is a good question. I mean, I think I can even think of like pre 9/11. You know, some people would make jokes and everything about destruction, blowing things up. People are like, oh, that's funny or whatever. Now, post somebody says that. I remember even back in the very early '90s, during a garage bomb explosion, some people would not. There was a news person that made a joke in his article about that, and he got reprimanded. I mean, he didn't lose his job, didn't get cut salary, but he had to put an official apology because that's just how the tense is. I mean, especially now. I mean, this will actually segment into what we just talked about, Jim Carrey going to Sandy. Because let's face it, Sandy Hook is a very thing, and I mean, I pray every day. I always hope that never anywhere comes near my life or anybody I know or in general, because it's a hard subject. And we try not to walk on eggshells on it, but it is a subject that's here and now. And that's the problem. In this guy's case here, the easiest way to say it is he said something he really shouldn't have said, and especially in a social public media.
That was the thing. Is like if he'd have just put it on a forum to his friends, or even just like into a private email, something like that.
Right.
But yeah, this is one. I mean, we can go back and forth with this. It's like, but should he really be jailed for this?
And that's the thing. I mean, I think if he had a history or had been known to do this thing, then he's got more doing here. I think the more thing, I mean, because they always say, like, well, zero tolerance. But that's the thing. And I think it has gone to extreme. I understand they're trying to show it as an example to people, but there's a point. 8 years in prison, it wasn't like he hacked an account. This is not like he was doing it. And like
there was no guns found in his
There's
place.
nothing even remotely thinking that versus people who have said things who should be checked out, who have a history.
Well, like, what were those kids that did Columbine? I mean, when they started making things, they found guns. They found
that was something that could have been avoided, sadly.
But they found all sorts of things that pointed at it. This, they're not finding anything that points that he's going to do it.
Right.
It's like, okay, one comment. Well, how many stupid comments did I make when I was 19?
Right. Exactly. But I mean, it
Or
is,
17.
but we live in a current era where that's what we worry about. That unfortunately, if we don't pay attention, something bad's going to happen. That's now what we've gone post.
Now we almost focus too much on something.
Yes, and which kind of goes right into what we were just talking about Jim Carrey's recent,
And he plays Colonel Stars and Stripes.
which is basically a parody on Captain America.
The psycho Captain America.
Basically, that'd be the easiest way to say it.
He actually said that, I don't have the quote right in front of me, but he did say that due to Kick-Ass's extreme, or Kick-Ass 2, I should say, due to the extreme level of violence and in this post-Sandy Hook, he could not, in good conscience, promote Kick-Ass 2. Now, he's not saying that he's not going to be in it, because obviously he's a huge part.
Yeah. And he's not stopping the whole movie, like, don't take it out.
Yeah, he's not telling him, can you edit around it or anything. He's just saying, I don't want to go on the news circuit or go talk to Conan or Jay Leno or Jimmy Kimmel or anybody. Saying, I don't want to go talk to them about this. I don't want to promote it, but you do what you want to with the movie.
And I think that said it perfectly there. I mean, because he's changed. I mean, that's happened to other actors, too. I can think of an example. I mean, we talked about this before as we were having a late lunch here out of the rain, as we were talking about Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis, back when he started his career, was a comedy and drama actor. Then he did Die Hard, and also he's this big action actor. He was swearing, doing very shocking things. And then he turned around, which was 1987. He turned around in, I believe it was 2000, 2001, he did The Kid, a Disney film. And by then, Bruce Willis has had a long, long career, more action films and drama and comedy. And it's such a family-friend film. If you would have said that after seeing, the first or second Die Hard or some of the other films he did afterwards, you'd be like, oh, he can't promote, shouldn't even be considered for a role like that. He's not offsetting. And it's a good movie.
Now I more think of him in action roles, so then when you get a drama with him, it's interesting. That's what's different now.
Yeah.
I mean, think of he had done lots and lots of action films, and then he came back and did The Sixth Sense.
Yes, exactly. Which is a thriller. Which is
phenomenal thriller, one of M. Night Shyamalan's first and only good movies.
Yeah, I'll get a little bit close to Shatter, but that's about as far as I'm going with that.
But yeah, I really, when I think of Bruce Willis now, I always think of Die Hard, and I think of Yippee-Ki-Yay. I won't finish the quote.
No. Family show.
Family. Yeah, And I really think of him now, like when I see something like The Expendables, he was actually supposed to be in a video game movie,
Oh yeah.
but he's actually pulled out now. It's going to be Kane Lynch.
Oh yeah.
He's actually pulled out now, and he actually was. That was one of the only times when I've heard about a comic book, or I'm sorry, a video game movie, and I've looked right at it and I've said, "That's perfect."
Yeah.
Then they cast Jamie Foxx as Lynch, and I was like, "No,
He could be Electro, but he can't be
it
Lynch.
can't be Lynch." Billy Bob Thornton could be Lynch, but
Very true. And we like Jamie Foxx, by the way.
yeah, I like Jamie Foxx. He's really, really good. It's just I didn't see him in the role of Lynch.
Correct.
So
And that's what kind of happens sometimes at roles. You either don't see it and then they surprise you. Michael Keaton, the original Batman '89, was a big shock because everybody's like, wait, what? And then they were like, oh, he was a good Batman.
which is funny because actually Sylvester Stallone, a long time ago, he was quoted as saying that he thought Batman was the destruction of the action movie
Mm-hmm.
because Michael Keaton, Tim Burton, they all made it okay to Velcro on your muscles instead of actually go to the gym, work out.
Which turned its own controversy, which brings right back to Jim Carrey. If you look when he played the Riddler,
Mhm.
I mean, he does some violent acts, but no, it doesn't, I mean, including killing a guy.
Mhm.
He throws him out a window, but you never see it. You just put two
It's
and
more
two.
implied at that point.
Exactly. But I think what he's doing in K2 is the truth is he's, the character, and I have read the series.
Mhm.
It's not kid friendly at all. I mean,
No.
this is very thing. I mean, the writer Mark Miller, who has written one of my favorite Spider-Man stories, just like if you look at Frank Miller's, Sin City. Now that's very adult oriented,
Mhm.
but it's Daredevil, beautiful, and Batman, fantastically done. But I think in this case here, Mark Miller has basically he made a series that parody old comics from violence. That's why it's extremely violent. That's why they swear. That's why it's people who should not be doing this stuff.
Mhm.
And that's basically what they're doing. It's a parody off the genre. And the current series, K3, is wrapping up right now. But, Mark Millar himself said, it's my story. I got it. And I feel the same way. But
Mhm.
I can't change the past. I can't alter. And, I watch what I write, but it's not going to let me get in the right of what I'm good at.
Mhm.
And same thing with Jim Carrey. I mean, he probably won't go on to do films like this he did. Again, I mean, not that he won't do it. But, oh, they heard about us. They're coming.
The ambulance is here because we're shocking everyone with our awesomeness on the new.
There's about 3 people next to us that headphones. So they don't hear a word we say right now. But anyhow, I'm keeping that in. I'm not editing that out. I'm just
No.
telling you now, folks. That's just too good. a
There's
time.
nothing edited.
But, I mean, I completely understand because there are a lot of actors and actresses that do that. I remember there was one actress. She did a TV series, and she never. I can't think of her name off the hook, but if I could think of her right now. But she never wanted to do TV again because she felt that was so early career. Now
Mm.
she'd move on, and that happens to people. But I think in this, I think Jim Carrey, especially because Jim Carrey has kids of his own. They're growing up now. He's don't know if he has a grandchild yet, but I think
I don't think so.
I know. But I mean, that's an example. I remember when he originally did The Majestic, which is about the MacArthur trials, how he lost his job, and his daughter at that time was 16,
Mm-hmm.
and she was saying like, "Well, that was not history friendly. That was history friendly, but it wasn't kind." I was like, "Why?" Because that stuff happened. People lost good jobs thinking they were communists.
He did do a comic book movie a while back, though. He actually did The Mask, which
Yes,
was
and he
based
did
on a
it.
comic.
And
But the thing is, The Mask, if anybody's ever read that, The Mask is actually pretty dark and violent.
it is, and actually, the
And-
movie was cartoon violence.
Yeah, which was almost a complete 180 from what the comic is.
Yeah, because when the movie came out, I was just got my driver's license,
Mhm.
and I went to the comic shop. I'd gotten back in the comics. At the point I picked up, and I went, "This is not like the movie." And then the
Mhm.
cartoon came out a couple years ago, and the cartoon was even
Even
less
more watered down.
watered down. So it's kind of like, wow.
But at that point, I think they actually did that because he was more known. He was like fresh off of Ace Ventura.
Oh, exactly.
So people wanted that wacky.
and he was already working on Dumb and Dumber, and he had a couple things, and Ace Ventura 2 was already in the works.
He really hadn't established himself as a good actor. I mean, he'd established himself as like an Adam Sandler kind of wacky kind
before
of
Adam Sandler was really
Yeah.
getting into it.
He'd established that he could do stupid comedy, but he hadn't really established himself as an actor. That didn't happen until I want to say it was Man on the Moon.
Yeah, Man on the Moon and
Man
then
on
The
the Moon.
Truman Show were very good
Mhm.
examples of him actually being an actor. Because even when he did Living Color, he was a stand-up comedian. I remember one of his early stand-up comedians, which was in '89, and he actually made fun of the first Batman film as being Jack Nicholson, did the eyebrows, did everything,
Mhm.
did the light, and it was hilarious. But that's what he was. He was a comedian. And his very first movie was a stupid vampire thing when he was a teen actor. The only
Mhm.
drama he ever done was as a star that got killed in a Dirty Harry movie with Clint Eastwood, where he's in the film a whopping 10 minutes.
Mhm.
And he even made fun of it years later with Clint Eastwood, who cracked up at it.
Mhm.
But that was really his only dramatic acting. Yeah, until he did Man on the Moon and Truman Show. That's really showed that Jim Carrey could act. Same thing we did Simon Birch. I thought he did a very good job with that.
Yeah, he was only in that for like 5 minutes at the end.
And he
too.
narrates it, really.
Mhm.
And he said himself he was in a studio for less than a month recording all the lines, and the filming was a week.
Mhm. That was a really good movie too. I remember actually watching that with Rachel and
It's a very
my
good
wife,
film.
and she could not stop crying at the end. I won't give the end away for anybody that hasn't seen it, but so well, bringing this back to more comics. Why do you think that? I mean, with the level of violence that's in comics now, it seems more adult oriented. But as a parent, do you think that that's gone the right way? Because when we grew up, think about it. We had X-Men, and there was violence. They had the Ninja Turtles, and if you ever read the originals, very different.
Yeah.
Shredder actually is not even in it. He's like killed off within the first couple issues.
Right. And the foot soldiers were real people.
Yeah.
They weren't robots.
Do you think that we've actually used the cartoons to actually pitch these comics to kids, and then when they find out what the real comics are like, that's where people get upset? Or what do you?
And I think that's actually a good question. Actually, we talked about this before we filmed about the original G.I. Joe. I mean, when they did that, or the original Transformers, they had guns, they had stuff, but they were lasers, and there were explosions. But people could get magically away, people would heal and everything. But then you read the comic based
Batman
on
the
it.
Animated Series had a lot of violence in it too, but they didn't kill anyone.
Exactly. Same
Not
thing.
that I remember anyway.
Another thing, if you look at He-Man and She-Ra, they punched things got blow up, people got hurt. Did they ever physically hit somebody? No.
Not that I know of.
No, sword clashing. Completely different thing.
The Joker from the Batman the Animated Series to like the new games of like Arkham Origins coming out, Arkham City, Arkham Asylum.
Nicely done by Mark Hamill.
Very, very. But if you ever watch the cartoon, they actually, instead of having them die, they just kind of lay there with a huge smile on their face.
Right.
Like they've been laughing gas or something,
Yeah,
and they just kind of lay
it's
there, which
not
is actually
to
kind of more disturbing than killing.
Well, it's
When you
just
think
true.
of-
I mean, because in the comics, it is disturbing how the joke, but I mean, that's the thing. As he said, he kills you with a smile on his face. Not we're promoting killing here, but
No.
I'm just saying. I mean, it's very interesting. I think, and I said this earlier, I think we've gotten to a society where we can accept it more than it was years ago. And it's not saying, oh, get up all the time, but I think it's a point to people are finding it more accepting. Just like somebody going in, as we said back in issue, somebody going with a Walking Dead lunchbox. I mean, let's face it, that was 20 years ago. Whoa.
No, even 10 years ago, I don't think The Walking Dead would even be on TV.
I think the problem is we kind of have to not go crazy. We just need to reevaluate and see why we find this accepting. Why is it good? I mean, that's one thing too. I mean, same thing with games. People
Part of it is the TV networks. They want to push as much as they can.
exactly, and when they get up way to push, people tune in. People do it.
Well, remember NYPD Blue years and years ago,
Oh,
they
yeah.
were going to use the S word on TV, and people went nuts. And I mean, there was like controversy, but then that was also like the highest rated.
Same thing with Partial Nudity did that too.
Mhm. And now look, I mean, I know this is HBO, but look at Game of Thrones. Have you ever seen that?
I have seen Game of Thrones.
That's and there's some
Things
parts that's almost like softcore porn.
and some of the actresses themselves, like, I'm kind of tired of doing nude scenes because there's more to me than that. I mean, this even goes back to I'm going to throw Joe Palzano from Nerdy Bird here about Alice Eve from the recent Star Trek movie. There is a scene where Alice Eve is in technically futuristic underwear, and the point is she's changing, and he looks, but there really should be no reason that scene's in the movie. So she's changing, but do we have to see? Oh yeah, we get it. I mean, Alice Eve is a very attractive woman. She can act. And then they did a promotion where she's going to the convention, and what picture they put her up there, and it's still Conacher, and they changed it. That's kind of like, I think in its best way, because James Ullen, who was one of the writers, said himself, I know why I put it in there, but I should have thought of that, like, really, why was that? Would have been one thing if it would have been talk or...
Well, J.J. Abrams was actually interviewed on Conan just recently, and he said the reason he wanted to put it in was because earlier in the movie, which nobody's even saying, you see, I forget the actor, but the guy that was playing James Carter.
Oh, yeah, and there is a scene.
Yeah, you see
And
him
we're not
in
going to
bed.
go really into
Yeah,
it.
we won't. But you see him in bed, and he doesn't have a shirt on.
Right.
So he said that he basically just wanted to balance it out, and I was like, that just sounds like the biggest excuse to throw a naked lady.
Exactly, and I think that's what happens. I mean, like I said, it's an art form, but at the same time, it's kind of like, is it relevant? And that's where I agreed with Jill. I mean, we can't go censoring everything. That's just that's been controversy for years, and it's still going on worse than ever now. In case of everything we're talking too, but it's a little difference between the old Space Invaders when you're a little 6-bit character blowing up fictional ships.
Fictional lines.
Yeah, and all that compared to now where you play Call of Duty and you think you're in a war zone for real.
Actually, I know one of our admins, well, he's not an admin so much anymore, but he actually told me he can't play Call of Duty. He can play Battlefield. He can play first-person shooters, but he cannot play Call of Duty
Right.
because apparently it messes with him.
Exactly.
And he was actually a Marines vet. He was over in Iraq. I haven't talked to him too much about it, but he just told me he cannot play
Which we
Call of
completely,
Duty.
yeah,
Which I
completely
understand, and I've understood for a long time, but even at first I was like, wait a second, this is digital. How does this really mess with you? But I guess it actually does something with the wiring of the brain.
And that's the thing too. And we're not here to make a psycho thing. Though we could make a wonderful dissertation on this though too. But that's not what I'm writing.
My wife's a psychology major, and we should bring her in for something like that.
We could and everything.
Of course,
else.
then it'd be games, comics, coffee, and psychology.
No,
No, because that would take away the fun.
that would take away the fun because we try to, like I said, we try to keep a family oriented here, but still deal with the topics in here, but try not to take anybody's side anyway. But at the same time, we're going to do more fun stuff. We're going to talk about the 8-bit world next time, and we're going to have a lot of fun with that. And that's just a joy. Like I said, we try to do it. This one was just more of a serious topic we haven't done in a while, and we thought we'd talk about it. And I think the easiest way, and this would be my final sense on all of this in general for everything else too, is I think, as a society, it's what people have pushed and what the people who have pushed and how they've accepted it and everything. And sometimes you look for an excuse. And I think the truth is we kind of got to watch what we push. I mean, they say pushing learning, understandable. Pushing the limits of yourself, understandable. But sometimes there's just some boundaries you got to drink. In this case, when we started all this, he pushed a boundary he should have known better, sadly. And I'd hate it if my son ever did that too. But I would hate any real. And I think that because I sadly got on social network years ago in the last couple, and I said something. I kind of went, I know that's not a thing, but the wrong people saw that. Not like people, but then you get flack over it when you're just like, I'm sorry, I don't write it in a journal, write a thing. Well, I know, but sometimes some people don't think first.
I've actually blocked people on Facebook for being negative in all their posts, and then when I called somebody out on it once, they're like, "Oh, well, I use Facebook to vent." It's like you don't vent to the world like that.
Exactly.
It's like that's why one of the reasons I play games, because if I get really frustrated, I can kill things in a digital world where it's not actually affecting anything.
I know. I mean, it thinks that, like I said, frustration blowing off steam. Just like people who play sports, who go work out at the gym. I mean, they're working out, but they're upset, they're stressed, and they say that's actually the best time to work out. It's because then you're forcing that energy.
Your adrenaline's right there.
And it's there, and you feel better. It's better in water relief. It's better in your system. Stuff. Same thing like one thing I did for years is before my knees went out, I went rollerblade. I didn't have a bad rollerblade. Rollerblade. Just freed. It just worked really well. Same thing with thing. I write a blog entry. I read a comic. I do some homework. I mean, that's one thing. My stress was I always had to channel it somewhere positive. And I think I was thinking here, they didn't channel positive. Jim Carrey, completely understand his absolute view and everything else.
I see where he's going with that. At the same time, I'm like, that seems like a slap in the face to the producers. But then I was like, no, but he's not saying don't do it. He's
just saying he can't do it, which I understand. I think in all these cases, with our 19-year-old, we need to see how that turns up with that thing. Jim Carrey, to see what his next couple. I mean, because he's already finished 3 other films, so.
And I will be posting as much as I can find on this Justin Carter kid. I've been trying to keep up with the trial a little bit, as much as I can. I got work and everything, which tends to
I have a career.
take up a lot of time.
I have a house to pay for. Yes, I got the house finally.
I have $615 a month worth of rent. So,
I pay double that for mortgage. And that doesn't include bills. And I have a kid to put through school and a wife to keep happy. So, and
but yeah, I'm
gonna keep happy.
Yeah, it's good to keep the wives happy. If you're single, number one rule: if she ain't happy, you ain't happy.
And technically, if you're not happy, they know they're not going to be happy. Or the other case is, if daddy ain't happy, and that includes father-in-law or your actual daddy, no one happy in the house. But
let me ask you something though. Recently, and this is actually completely, there's no real segue into this, but Sony and Microsoft have announced their new consoles.
Yes.
The Xbox One, PlayStation 4.
We're going to go from serious now.
Yeah. We got to end it on a fun note.
We do, and I think this is a good note to put it on, because this will segue into our 8-bit segment next.
Now, Microsoft actually, they really upset a lot of people with the Xbox One. I watched the reveal. Now,
Same here.
Yeah. I did watch the reveal, and they really focus on TV, and they seem to go after, like, the non-gamers. It's like a gaming console aimed at non-gamers, which didn't make a whole lot of sense. then they were like, okay, well, we're going to talk about Call of Duty and maybe announce a few other games. And then at E3, they had a great conference at E3.
Mm-hmm.
What was really upsetting people was there was the DRM, the Digital Rights Media, for you that don't know what that means. Basically, where the publisher could say, you have to have this on all the time. You have to have the always on.
Mm-hmm.
It always had to be connected to the internet. It had to connect to the internet at least once in a 24-hour period.
Bless you.
Bless you.
We're editing that.
And they had a ton of other things that were upsetting people, which I could go on for a long time.
Yeah.
But then they switched.
Mm-hmm.
Once PlayStation went up there and completely knocked them out of the water, and they were like, guess what? We don't have restrictions on used games. We don't have restrictions on this. I've never seen the E3 floor erupt in that much applause that loud, which then caused Microsoft to later on, through a few more announcements and everything, they announced that they were taking away all that stuff, but they still reserve the right to implement it again.
Right.
What do you think of that? Did they do the right move by listening to the consumer, or do you think, which that's basically what it was, they were listening to us? Do you think that shouldn't have been done in the first place? Do you think they've hurt themselves at all, shot themselves in the foot, as a lot of our people have said? Because I think when the Xbox One comes out, people are going to be like, I remember how mad I was at them. I'm going to go with PlayStation.
Right. That's actually a very good point. And actually, you know what? I can even just think about something that happened this last year, since we were talking about electronics in here. What happened with the Adobe workshops as well as Microsoft Office? All of a sudden they said, well, you know what? We're not going to give you upgrade. You just got to pay us money every year, get the latest versions, all that. And that kind of shot them in the foot, because all of a sudden they were saying, well, you know, because some people like, oh yeah, I'll get Microsoft 2013. I'll be good until the next Switch will be in 3 or 4 years. I'll be good. Now it's like, no, we got to pay for the cloud system, upgrade it. Well, I don't have the money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like right here when they talked about Xbox, because there were some people. One guy I know for sure, because he was on his wife's computer. She said, I have limited internet. I got to plug it in. I can't have this because I don't have a wireless system. This game system doesn't work for me. And the PS4, and they're like, oh, you're not limited. You can use it, but you're fine. And that was like, oh, I'm happy with that. I think the problem was, you know, all companies done it. Like I said, I just mentioned Adobe and Microsoft. Apple's done it. Helen's done it. Nintendo did it back in the heyday, too, back when GameCube first came out. And all that. It's just like the backwards capability, you know. That was always a great thing, especially when PS2 came out. That started the whole backwards compatibility.
That started, and then PS3 did one up. They actually made it backwards, originally made it backwards compatible with the PS1 and the PS2, and I actually still have one of those systems that's backwards compatible with both systems.
Just like my brother has got one of the original Blu-ray ones.
And then that actually put them, I believe, $3 billion in the hole.
Yeah, you got to keep in mind, corporations or any organization, private business, even if it's, you know, Joe and, you know, mom and pa's store down the thing, they want to try to get the people who aren't coming in. They want to appeal to that audience and everything. Sometimes they limit themselves just going for that genre. I mean, the biggest thing now is like, oh, we have to worry about the 12 to 24 demographic. Well, that limits a TV show, but that's all people have cared the last 6 years. Any network, you know, HBO to CBS to, you know, local station and everything, and they limit themselves. I understand that's your major thing. That's who you're gonna get your money. That's who you can get your audience. I mean, comics do it, movies do it. What is their target basis? So, I mean, that's something that's not going to work. But I think they need to think of like, well, how are we going to get that without compromising already established customers? And that is kind of where people said Xbox shot himself in the foot with that and everything. Same thing with the games. It was cool seeing everything. But, and I just made a joke with this the other day with somewhere I talked about Internet Explorer, and the guy said, well, what's wrong with Internet Explorer? I'm like, well, it's not that. It's just it's not working well with other systems because they kind of got behind the games, and now they're trying to run up here. But it's just like Netscape. I think in a couple of years, Internet Explorer will be gone too. And
it most likely will.
And it's just that they have to. When people do that, it's just they don't think, or they had this a great idea, and then they just never thought that was going to cause out. It's just like everything. You don't know how people are going to react, because they say you can please people half of the time, and you can't please them half the time.
But it almost seemed like Microsoft was going like, we're Microsoft, you'll do what we say.
Right.
And they were trying to change everything, which, as history will teach you, you don't want to change everything at once. People are going to reject that.
It doesn't matter if they're accepting a change or hate change.
But they're going to reject changing everything at once. You almost want to ease them into it, like, let's change this.
And I think
then let's move this forward, you know.
And I think that's what's really going to cause problems for Xbox One and PS4 when they finally come out in the next few months. Is I think that's when people are going to probably, because let's face it, the game prices are close. It's not going to be pricing. Either you're going to have the money now. but that could hurt sales. It was like when Nintendo decided to create the Wii U. They wanted to do something different, but they wanted to ease them in there, considering the next generation of that'll be a major launch platform, which is what they did. I mean, when you did Nintendo and Super Nintendo, it was better graphics, but it segued. Then it went into the N64. They still segued. So when they got to the Wii, it was a major change, but it was a nice lean into it. Xbox did that with the first one in the 360, and now they're going, they're jumping 6 other hurdles to do it, like PS decided to keep going up the curve.
Well, PlayStation actually, they upset people with the launch of the PlayStation 3.
Right.
I think more of that was the price point. There was really no bad publicity with it. It was just people like, I don't know if I want to spend $600.
When you had the Xbox and the Nintendo Wii, which were much cost effective, they did the same thing.
There was that, but then when Xbox One was announced, there was just a wave of bad press. But then one thing my mom said, my mom actually used to work for IBM. IBM, she worked in the Rochester, Minnesota branch. And she actually worked, I can say this now because it's years and years ago, she actually worked on putting the meetings together between Microsoft and IBM, because as a lot of people know, it's IBM chips.
There's a Pentium, and I've written papers about that situation too.
Well, she was on that, and then I told her what was going on with the Xbox One. She doesn't play video games, she didn't care. But I told her what was going on, and she said she wondered if that was actually done on purpose. That they were intentionally trying to upset people, to get people talking, because there's no such thing as bad publicity.
And the truth is, companies have been doing it for years, and they write history books on it.
Sony actually admitted to hiring graffiti artists to promote the PlayStation Portable.
Right.
Rockstar recently, I don't know if it was recently, a while back, they admitted to actually paying newscasters, or I don't know if it was newscasters, but paying people in the public eye to say bad things about the original Grand Theft Auto, just to get people to...
And it even goes back...
Just to get people to really talk about it, and then, which drove up sales.
And I can even say the same thing about Mega Man 5 and 6. Back in Mega Man 5, when they were working on the sequel, they ran out of ideas for their robot bosses. They did a contest to get people, because the creators were dumb. It wasn't oh, hey, kids, try out and you can get your robot in a video game. They were out of thing, and then they did it in the US. Oh, it works for you because the creators, and they even went on record now saying you can go to Wikipedia or Google it or whatever you want to do, or Bing it, and they will say it too. It's like, if it wasn't for those contests, we would have been up the creek without a paddle in these games.
Yeah,
and
true.
they even think, but they said, oh no, it's a fun contest. You'll get this and the property rights. And I was like, no, we just don't have any idea what to do.
Yeah, another thing that really upset people was like there didn't seem to be any support for indie games on the Xbox One, and you can point at the AAA games, Grand Theft Auto, in Uncharted, Mario.
Oh yeah, especially Uncharted. Yeah,
you can point at those and go like, oh well, I want to make those. It's like, well, you got to start somewhere.
Right.
Most of them start as indie gamers,
exactly.
or indie developers. How are you going to say, well, we want you to be great, but we're going to make it so you can't start?
Because let's face it, Sonic was originally an indie character off the original Alex Kidd in Miracle World. If it wasn't for that, Sonic would have never existed.
Of course, that was another thing that PlayStation went up there on E3 and just went like, guess what? We have like 18, or I forget the actual number, but we have tons of indie games, and within our first year, we're going to launch this many of them. And it was like, of course I'm going to. That's where I'm going for my indie games. But then,
Exactly.
Xbox has had some really great indie games too, so I was really surprised that they were not wanting to jump. They had Limbo, which is kind of disturbing, but really great at the same time.
I know, and that was one thing I heard. PS3, they did all these games. There was never actually any games that were really focused on it versus Nintendo or Xbox, where it's like, oh, Halo, oh, hey, Mario Bros., oh, hey, Zelda, we're good. But it was like PS3, we have really good graphics.
But that was when it was originally put out. I mean, there was Resistance, which was relatively unknown at the time, so you can't really say.
I can't say that.
And then you got Heavenly Sword, which again was unknown at the time. It hasn't spawned any sequels, and I know why, but we'll go into that later.
But yeah, we'll talk to that. But I think it's a good. I think we're going to have to see where this goes, especially when the launch is. Because through a year from now, they might just do it. Oh, that's my agent. We got to get going.
You have an agent?
I used to. I have a counselor. No, a school counselor. One teacher with me. Not that kind of counselor. I'm just kidding.
I need counseling.
I think we better.
We should stop.
We should stop now. It's been long enough, and our caffeine's going here, and I think we're getting texts from our better halves too. So
probably.
So that will do it for this edition for games, comics, and coffee, and we'll see you next. We're actually going to go into one of my favorite things, the 8-bit world, because I get to go a lot bit here. I know Adam's going to be happy with that. We can talk a little into comics and some other stuff, and actually the 8-bit coffee. No, it does exist. So that will do it.
That just sounds interesting. 8-bit coffee.
I need 8-side coffee right now.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we'll see you later.